Hello, this is part two of our lesson on vertebrate diversity, and we are basically going to continue our discussion on tetrapoda and amniota. So yung first part, natapos natin yung agnathan saying that they are these jawless fishes. The gnathostomes naman are those vertebrates with jaws. You have your osteichthyes, no, or yung ating bony fishes, okay? Sarcopterygi are those lobe-finned fishes, okay? And for this part of the lesson, we're going to talk about tetrapods and amniotes. Okay? So before we go ahead and talk about the characteristics of tetrapods for this lesson, okay, let us look at this phenogram that shows traits that have been modified and developed as vertebrates move from water to land. Okay, so as you can see, there are structures with um, tawag dyan, um, tawag dyan that are similar, no? Say for example, for the ancestral form of fishes with that of ancestral form um, of amphibians, no? And you can see these um, homologous characteristics, no? Na kung saan you have this humerus right here, and then in the humerus, okay, you have this one bone that connects to many rays which were thought to be later on developed into digits, no? Or yung ating toes at saka yung ating fingers. Okay? So this picture right here simply tells us that it may have been really uh, uh, occurred over the course of evolution that these tetrapod legs that we see today evolved from fins of the ancestral, say yung ating mga Paleozoic na mga fishes. Okay? So you can see yung paired na muscular fins that supports the bony elements in the fish, something that's very similar with the arm bone or yung ating humerus dito. And then the forearm bones, you have the radius and the ulna, okay? And some smaller elements that we call digits, yung sa wrist bones of tetrapods. So very striking yung similarity. And it is believed na these morphological adaptations supported daw yung transition of life from the aquatic environment, from the aquatic to the terrestrial environment. Okay? And this is in response to environmental pressure, no? So in our synchronous meeting, napag-usapan natin na some of these environmental pressures perhaps would be the lack of food, okay? Or like nagkaroon ng depletion of nutrients from the aquatic environment, which prompted organisms, early vertebrates, to slowly occupy the terrestrial environment, no? That includes yung pagbaba ng dissolved oxygen, which is alam natin important for metabolic processes of vertebrates, no? And also for the emergence of plants na maaring naging other source nila of pagkain, no? Of the early vertebrates. And it is also believed that tetrapods, yung ating four-footed land vertebrates, evolved from ancestors that share common traits with lungfishes, mainly because of the presence of the lungs, okay, something that's unique, and maybe na carry over of these ancestral tetrapods when they occupied the terrestrial environment. And it's believed that the ancestors had these lobe fins and later on developed into limbs as they started to occupy land. Okay? Apart from this modification of fins into appendages na ginamit for locomotion on land, okay, part of the adaptation also of these tetrapods would be the bone structures, no? So like for example, you have the bony scales, the gills, and the tail fins that were lost in the process, while these are replaced by forelimbs and hind limbs that later on contain digits, or ating fingers and toes, which enabled the early vertebrates to move on land. Okay, so one of the compelling evidences that we have to date was on Tiktaalik rosae. Okay, this is the video about it, no? And this The fossil remains of this organism suggest that Tiktaalik roseae had gills, okay, had scales and fins, but it also has a mobile neck, something that's yung um, common, no, na feature among the land vertebrates. Okay, and the fossilized pelvis and pelvic fin of this organism revealed that the evolution of hind limbs might have actually began as enhanced hind fins, no, according to fossil evidences. Okay, from a molecular perspective naman, we go back to our discussion on the Hox genes, no, saying that the differential expression of the limbs were mainly due to the um, changes or mutations in the HOX-A and HOX-D genes. Like say for example in this picture right here, no, paddlefish and tiktaalik, alam natin these are ancient, no, or are like primitive na forms. Okay, paddlefish, although it's ancient, but it's still living today. But for tiktaalik, alam natin that it's already extinct, no, wala na siya ngayon. Okay, and this organism, this paddlefish right here, exhibits a unique pattern of these Hox genes. No, if you can see at its pattern, okay, it's very much similar with that of the modern day tetrapods that we see today. Okay, this result supports the hypothesis that fish fossils as early as the time of paddlefish actually possessed the genetic toolkit, no, that may have enabled them to evolve hands and feet and also the digits from your lobe fins. Okay, and you can also see here, no, at the morphological level, no, the larval and juvenile specimen of these paddlefish. Okay, and you can see this stained here for the developing cartilage, no, and you can see here the skeleton of the pectoral fins, okay, which looks like yung equivalent, no, of the arms of the land dwelling vertebrates. Okay, so ito lang yung sinasabi about the transition, no, of these tetrapods. Now, these may have been the first vertebrates to have occupied the terrestrial environment, no, based on fossil evidences, okay, coupled with molecular molecular basis, no, more specifically mutations in Hox genes. Okay, so tetrapods are vertebrates with limbs containing digits, no? And it's believed that these limbs are modified fins that enabled modern day tetrapods to walk on land. Okay? And there are common features that we can um, infer, okay, or that we can cite among all tetrapods, and these are known to be adaptations because of change of habitat. Okay, you have the neck that separates the head from the rest of the body. Okay, and this mobile neck, okay, allowed this different types of movement, no, of the head. You also have this acceptation. When we say acceptation, this is basically a process wherein one character will take another function. Okay, so for example, yung fins noon ay ginagamit na ngayon for locomotion on land. Okay, and another example would be say the use of the feathers, no, for mating or display of flight in birds. Na ngayon ginagamit na siya to keep these organisms warm during episodes of cold weather. Okay, so these are just some of their common features, and also the ribs, no, alam natin that the ribs of vertebrates protect the respiratory system, more specifically yung ating lungs, no. And tetrapods, gaya na sinabi natin, does not only include animals with 4 feet. No? This group, in essence, encompasses all animals who descended from common ancestor that developed limbs. So that includes your Sarcopterygi. Okay. Apart from that, you also have your amphibians. Okay. Like for example, this Indian bullfrog that you see right here, your reptile. Okay. You have your axolotls. Okay. And you can see these prominent external gills, and of course, an example of mammal would be kangaroo, no, or marsupial. So for tetrapoda, you have your amphibians, and these organisms have legs for leaping or for crawling, except for apoda na limbless siya. Okay? These gills are replaced with lungs in the adult stage, and they have this three-chambered heart. Okay, and their reproduction is through external fertilization in water. So under class Amphibia, you have your salamanders. Under order Urodela. Okay, these salamanders have tail in both their young and adult stages. Okay, so interestingly, algae would grow on salamander eggs shortly after they're laid, no? And this colonization would even enter the tissues of the developing salamanders, which is thought to have helped, no, the hatching, no, of these salamander na eggs. Okay, and you also have your amphibians, no? So you have your frogs, under amphibians, which is an amphibian, no, under order Anura. Okay, these organisms on the process of metamorphosis, no, would lose their tail as they reach the adult form, and it is well established, no, that frogs would absorb or drink water through their skin. Okay, and it's one of the interesting frogs there is would be this Goliath frog, no, and you can see how massive this frog is, and also this female frog, no, wherein it uses its back, okay, yung pouches sa kanyang back to incubate her eggs. Okay? You also have your limbless na amphibians, no? They may look like yung ating annelids na segmented, okay? Or like yung ating tawag dyan, or yung ating arthropods, no? But they are actually amphibians, okay? These are the only known legless and burrowing types of amphibians, okay? And then you also have your amniotes, okay? Amniotes would include your birds, your reptiles, and your mammals, okay? So yung pinagkaiba niya lang talaga with other vertebrates would be the presence of this amniotic membrane in their eggs, nor yung ating amniotic egg, which allowed these organisms to lay eggs on land, okay? Because in water, hindi ganun ka needed, no, yung protection of the egg, or like further protection against changes in the pressure kasi it's just in the water, no, so relatively hindi ganun ka taas yung or laki yung influence ng pressure on the developing embryo, whereas that of the land, no, apart from possible drought, say for example, okay, maubusan ng fluid yung developing embryo, okay, it will also be more prone to predation, okay. And this development of amniotic membrane provided a mechanism by which embryos can be contained inside a cavity filled with fluid, okay, to afford protection and to shy away from the possibility of changes in pressure that might directly influence yung ating developing embryo. Okay? So yung parts ng ating amniotic egg, meron siyang four main parts. You have the chorion. Okay? The chorion is basically part of the amniotic egg that facilitates gas exchange, okay, between the embryo and its surrounding environment. Okay? You also have the amnion. Okay? This amnion right here, okay, this amnion, okay, yung parang membrane na yan, protects the embryo from external damage due to external shock. Okay? How about yung byproducts, no, or yung waste ng developing embryo, saan siya napupunta? Dito yun siya sa tinatawag natin na allantois. Okay? This allantois is just found anterior of the developing embryo and it serves as storage, no, of waste, mainly nitrogenous, produced by the embryo. And of course, you have the yolk sac that's used to transport nutrients from the yolk to the embryo. Okay? So under amniota, you have your reptiles. This includes your lizards, okay, your snakes, your alligators, even your turtles, and then crocodiles. Okay? And these organisms have a dry and tough na waterproof na skin, okay, with scales. In contrast to amphibians na they have this smooth na texture, no? And these scales, like that of fishes, protect the animal from external damage, okay? And these organisms are also poikilothermic. So, poikilothermic, no, versus homeothermic, or cold versus warm-blooded respectively. Okay? The key difference between homeothermic and poikilothermic is that um, homeothermic or warm-blooded organisms maintains a stable internal body temperature irrespective of external influence. While you have these poikilothermic organisms wherein their body temperature will vary considerably in response kung ano yung temperature ng kanilang environment. Okay? And under also amniotes, you have their class Aves. These are the group of birds, no? And these organisms have evolved from ancestral reptiles with scales that are now modified into feathers. Okay? Yung common among them would be, of course, a possession of feathers, no? To serve uh, uh, in terms of protection, okay, in warming the body, and in some species, no, ginagamit nila for mating, to attract their mates. They are now endothermic, no? Ibig sabihin, they regulate their body temperature to allow rapid metabolism na kailangan nila in flight. Okay? And unlike reptiles, they now have this four-chambered heart. Okay? Ibig sabihin, kapag may four-chambered heart yung organism, complete na ngayon yung oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood in the body. Okay? You also have these hollow bones and one functional ovary for females that help them reduce their body weight, and also kailangan din nila ng excellent vision, no? That they need to use to get their food, to navigate, and to identify possible mates. Okay? You also have your class Mammalia. Okay? Mammals are known to have evolved from a common ancestor that is shared with the modern day reptiles. So distinguishing characteristic naman niya would be the presence of mammary glands, okay, to supply the needs of the developing young, and of course the presence of hair. Okay, mammals are also warm-blooded animals with a four-chambered heart. Okay, apart from these characteristics, another key trait among mammals would be varied teeth structure that they can use, okay, to break down food in different ways. So that is shown, no, in our teeth structure, like you have your canine, okay, you have your molar, your incisors, na iba-iba yung kanilang known functions. Okay? And further, mammals are classified into three types, no? We have these egg-laying mammals we call the monotremes. An example for that one would be this echidna. Okay? You also have your marsupials, no? Marsupials, just like kangaroo, but in the picture, no, that's an example of a brush-tailed possum. You also have your greater bilby, no, wherein the young would briefly develop in the uterus, okay, and would later on crawl to the pouch of the mother, okay, and this developing young would continue to grow with the provision of the mother's milk. Okay? Meron pa din siya ng mammary gland that's unique among mammals. And of course, your placental mammals, that includes humans, no, wherein the young would completely develop inside the uterus before birth. So apart from humans, you also have your non-human apes. That includes the gorilla, which is known as the largest ape, and also the chimpanzees, no? And these are also sentient organisms, no? They are intelligent, highly communicative, and social animals. Okay? So as a summary, basahin na lang natin to, okay? Yung key takeaways natin, okay? And that's it for the second part of vertebrate diversity. Okay? So I hope this video recording will help you in your exam preparations. Okay? God bless everyone.